All right, we're back in session. Afternoon folks are ready to go, I think. The Agent Quick was on the stand, and you had not yet finished the direct, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. You have further questions?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Agent Quick, yes, before the break, you had indicated that as part of your investigation of the apartment at Bella Park Trail on July the 20th, that you had noted what appeared to be a nickel or quarter-shaped brownish stain on the mattress cover of the mattress cover that was in the bedroom with the adult clothing.
Yes.
Did you undertake to examine that any further or do any further testing with regard to that item?
I did in our lab.
Okay, and when did you do that?
I believe I did that on August 15th.
And what testing did you do?
I did a phenolphthalein test on the sample. It's a presumptive test for the presence of blood.
And was that positive for blood?
There were actually two spots on the comfort or on the mattress cover. One was negative and one was positive.
And the area that tested positive, and you used presumptive test for blood. What do you mean when you say that?
It's just a presumptive field test. I can't tell you whether it's blood or not. You need a laboratory to tell you whether it's actually blood or not.
And so once you got this one spot that tested positive under the presumptive test for blood, what did you do then?
I submitted it to the state crime lab.
And exactly what did you submit?
I submit a sterile cotton swab that I had taken a sample of the spot with.
Now, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Agent Quick, I've handed you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 480. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is State's Exhibit number 480?
It's an evidence envelope containing the sample swab from the mattress pad.
And did you, is that what you submitted to the State Crime Lab?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you able to recognize that it's in the same condition as when you submitted it?
Yes.
And did you place initials and date and everything so that you'll be able to recognize it at a later date?
Yes, I did.
And does it have some additional markings on it now which would indicate work by the State Crime Lab?
Yes.
And that's 480, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time the State will move to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 480.
Let me receive.
Agent Quick, you indicated that you collected several items that day on July the 20th. Did you further process any of those other items other than the mattress pad?
Yes, I did.
And what other processing did you do?
I did a visual examination of all the bedding that was on the bed, and I also did trace tapings, took a trace taping of all the samples, all the bedding, and examined it for any blood or damage.
And did you, in that examination, see anything that piqued your interest with regard to blood or damage or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
So once you completed your examination, did you just package those items up and submit them back to the Raleigh Police Department?
Yes.
Now, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I hand you Agent Quick what's previously been introduced into evidence, State's Exhibit number 77. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
And what is State's Exhibit 77?
It's an evidence envelope with my name and case number that has a handwritten document in it.
And is that the note that you recovered from the kitchen bar area that was shown in the photographs that you identified earlier?
Yes, that's what it says.
You examine that, make sure it's the saying though that you recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
And was there any further processing or anything that you needed to do with regard to that note?
I just photocopied it and left it alone.
Okay. And so that was something that then was kept in the custody of the Raleigh Police Department?
Yes.
So any further testing on that was done by some other agency, is that right?
Yes.
You indicated that you went back to the apartment at a later date, and I believe you had indicated that was August the 2nd of 2011.
Yes.
And you indicated at that point that this had become a homicide investigation as Laura Ackerson's remains had been recovered in Texas.
Yes.
You had testified earlier that you collected some items from the apartment on that day.
Yes.
And did they include the carpeting from that spot near the front door, as well as the carpeting in front of that hall bath?
Yes, the carpeting and the padding underneath the carpeting.
And as you were, did that involve you actually cutting out the carpet and the padding?
Yes.
Did you notice anything in particular when you were examining those items?
I just noticed they were discolored like I explained before, and the padding under the carpet by the front door had a discoloration to it also.
And did you yourself undertake to do any testing of those two items?
I did some phenolphthalein testing on those items for any blood.
And did you get, what kind of reaction did you get?
Negative.
Did you submit those items to the state crime lab for further testing?
I believe just the padding was submitted.
And why was that?
It was in a discussion between myself and the detectives. I would assume that it was decided only to send the pad.
Mattress witness.
You may.
No, this is the carpet, larger part. Agent Quick, I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes as State Exhibit 476.
Yes.
And do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It's described as the carpet by the foyer.
And is that, can you look inside and see if that?
There's a large section of carpet.
And is that what you collected on August the 2nd of 2011?
Yes, it is.
This time state would move to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 436,
476.
476.
Let me just say, is this the carpet and the padding, or just the carpet?
Just the carpet.
Okay, thank you. You may.
Agent Quick, I'm handing you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 477. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
What is State's Exhibit 477?
It's the carpet from in front of the hall bathroom door.
And that, again, is just the carpet, not the padding itself.
Yes.
Got it. At this time, State will move to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 477.
Let me see.
Can you remove State's Exhibit 477?
Can I get some scissors?
And, Donna, may she step down?
Sure.
Agent Quigg, now, again, this is the carpet that's from the hallway in front of that hall bathroom door?
Yes.
And can you, using that, point out the discoloration that you observed?
There's one area here, which would, the door frame would be right in here. And there's a second area, same place on the other side of the carpet.
And you still have 476 in front of you?
Yes, I do.
And can you open that up, please? And is that the carpet from the side of the front door that was recovered from the Bella Park apartment?
Yes, it is.
I may take a quick step down again.
She may.
And can you point out the discoloration that you observed?
Yes, it is. It's this whole area, this large area of discoloration.
Thank you. Agent Quick, I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibits 478 and 479, and ask if you recognize those.
Yes, I do.
What is State's 478?
478 is the carpet pad from the living room.
And is that the item that you collected and sent for further examination by the State Crime Lab?
I did.
And can you open up 478? Are you able to see the discoloration that you observed?
I am. Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I take a quick step down?
She may.
And again, this is the padding from the, near the front door.
Near the front door, yes.
Agent Cook, with regard to the carpet padding from the, underneath the carpet outside the hall room bath, did you observe any discoloration with regard to that padding?
If I could refer to my notes, please. No, I did not.
But that also was sent to the State Crime Lab for further analysis.
Yes, it was.
At this time, the state would move to introduce or move into evidence 476 through 479.
I'll move it to.
Agent Quick, you had indicated that when you went back on August the 2nd, that you collected this carpet and the padding. Did you conduct any further analysis?
I did.
And what did you do on that day?
On that particular day, excuse me, I also collected a known sample of the carpet. So we would have a known sample that needed to be compared to anything. I did some further collection in the bathroom of the drain plugs and the fixtures, and we also luminoled the bathroom again.
And what was your reason for doing some more luminol testing on this day?
Just to do some further testing, we removed more of the baseboards to try to see if we could find any additional blood.
And luminol's been described earlier as a chemical that fluoresces when it comes into contact with certain substances. Is that right?
Yes.
And are there is blood one of those substances that it reacts with and fluoresces?
Yes, it is.
Are there other substances that react with luminol?
Yes, there are.
And what are they?
Some certain bleaches react with blood, metals, irons, copper pennies, some plant matter react with blood or react with luminol.
So bleach is one of the items that will react with luminol?
It can, yes.
And you've indicated earlier that when you process an item with luminol, do you then take another step to another presumptive blood test?
Yes, we do.
And what is that?
If it's called phenolphthalein, and if we get an area of interest that fluoresces with the luminol, because it does react with so many different substances, we will take a phenolphthalein presumptive test and test that to see if we get a positive or negative result.
And in processing the bathroom, the hall bath, is that one of the areas that you concentrated on?
Yes, it was.
Is that the primary area that you concentrated on?
Yes,
And did you get any reaction with the luminol?
I did.
And to what area?
I had several areas on the floor that gave the fluorescent or chemiluminescent reaction, and one small spot on the linen closet door frame.
And did you take the next step of the presumptive test?
I did with the areas on the floor. I tested all of them. I got a negative reaction with the phenolphthalein. The spot on the linen closet door was much too small to do another presumptive test, so I just collected it as evidence.
And in collecting, is that involving swabbing it?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you do with that swab?
I collected it as evidence and then I submitted it to the state crime lab.
Your Honor, may I first witness?
You may.
Agent Quick, I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 470. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is State's Exhibit 470?
It is an evidence envelope containing the sample swab from the linen closet door frame.
And is that the item that you submitted for further testing by the State Crime Lab?
It is.
Now, at this time, the State will move to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 470.
Vote be received.
Your Honor, may I first witness?
You may.
Agent Quick, I'm handing you what has been marked and introduced into evidence as A465, being a photograph. Is that photograph of the linen closet door frame?
Yes, it is.
And would you be able to use that photograph to show the area that you swabbed that fluoresced with the luminol and that you swabbed with 470?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I publish this on the screen?
Have you moved its submission?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
have.
sir.
All right, let it be received. You may publish.
Is 465 or A465 is up on the screen. Do you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you use the laser pointer to point out the area that fluoresced with the luminol that you later took the swab from?
It was approximately halfway up the door, so it was approximately in this area right here.
And again, that wasn't something that was visible. It was only after you applied the chemicals that you got a reaction to that.
Yes.
You indicated, thank you. You indicated that you had recovered some other areas from the drain, some other materials.
Yes, some hair and fibers from inside the drain.
And which drain did you recover the hair and fibers from?
The bathtub and the hall bathroom.
And were these hair and fibers, were they, how did you have to remove any items to get to those hairs?
No, the plug was already out, so just reached in and with clean gloves and pulled the hair and debris out.
And was that something that you sent to the State Crime Lab?
Yes, I did.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 471. Do you recognize that item?
I do.
What is State's Exhibit 471?
It's an evidence envelope containing hair and debris from the hall bathroom drain.
And is that what you sent on to the State Crime Lab?
Yes.
Your Honor, the State moved to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 471.
So we received.
During your processing of that hall bathroom, did you attempt to collect any water from the P-trap?
We did for the bathtub, yes.
And were you able to recover some water that was in the P-trap?
Yes, I was.
And what did you do with that?
I sent it to the SBI lab for testing.
And did you later find out that that wasn't a kind of testing they do on water?
Yes.
There has been some, well, let me ask you, anything else that was collected from that residence that day?
Yes, there was.
And what else did you collect?
I collected the lint from the dryer. I collected the carpet and the carpet samplings, the hair and the debris. All of the bathtub fixtures include the plug, the shower head, the caulk from behind the fixtures, the drain, the faucet, a box of trash bags. I collected the P-traps from the bathroom sink, the kitchen sink, and the bathtub in the hall bathroom, a toilet bowl brush that I think was in the second bathroom, the sample from the linen closet, and the water from the bathtub P-trap.
When you use the term second bathroom, you're referring to that bathroom that's off the living room, bedroom, not the hallway bathroom.
Yes, it's the other one.
Were you, your testing, was it pretty extensive with regard to that bathroom and luminol and looking for any blood reactions?
Yes.
There has been some testimony about some trash that was recovered in connection with this investigation.
Yes.
And were you aware that Agent Galloway had been involved in working with the Raleigh Police Department in collecting various items of the trash?
Yes,
Did you yourself do any processing of that trash?
I did.
And can you describe to the jury what processing you did?
I did an overall examination of most of the trash that was collected for any blood, any damage, or any other items of interest in this case. I did some more chemical testing with some items, and I did some latent fingerprint of a few items that were in the trash also.
And the process of trying to collect latent fingerprints has been described earlier. Did you use the magnetic powder to try to develop fingerprints that could be compared to known prints?
It was one part of the three-step process I did on these specific items.
And were you able to collect some items or some what appeared to be fingerprints?
Yes, I was.
And did you submit those items for comparison?
I did.
And is that something that's done within CCBI? That is, there's a fingerprint examiner who looks at what agents such as yourself have collected and make comparison to known fingerprints?
Yes.
And did those experts basically go through the process and determine whether or not anything that you've collected is of value for comparison?
They do.
And what you collected in this case from the trash, was any of that of value for comparison?
No, ma'am.
And so basically, does that mean there's not enough detail to be able to make any decisions or identifications?
That's my understanding.
You indicated that you examine certain items for tears and that type of thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Did one of those items that include a pair of black pants and a white shirt?
Yes, it did.
And you know, may I approach?
You may.
Handed you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 578. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is 578?
It's a photograph of a black pair of pants and a white shirt that was taken by Agent Galloway.
And are those the items that you examined further back in the lab after they had been collected?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move to introduce in this time State's Exhibit 578.
578.
Yes, sir. Is that the wrong number?
I don't know. I thought I wrote 571 down. No.
It's 578.
Okay. Well, I miswrote it down. All right. Let 578 be received then.
Your Honor, may I publish it at this time?
You may.
Agent Quick, on the screen is State's Exhibit 578. Can you describe what's shown here?
It's a black pair of pants and a white and black shirt.
Okay, and are these the items that you examined?
Yes, they are.
And what observations did you make with regard to those items when you examined them?
When I got the items, they were still a little wet. They appeared to have dirt and mold and mildew on both items.
So particularly here, the white shirt that shows various discolorations, what did that appear to be?
It was mold and mildew and dirt.
And that same mold and mildew appear on the pants?
Yes.
Had those items previously been examined by Agent Galloway for blood?
I believe they were, yes.
And were these items that were sent for any further testing?
No, they were not.
Was there any indication that there was blood on these items?
No, they were not.
Did you also examine a towel that had been collected from the trash?
Yes.
And can you describe that towel?
I examined a white towel and a rose and colored towel that were collected in the trash.
Okay. And what observations did you make with regard to those?
On the white towel, there was nothing, there was no rips or damage, there was no obvious signs of blood on the towel. On the rose towel, again, there was no damage, rips or cuts or tears. The rose and colored towel did appear to have several large areas of bleach spots on them.
Did you have an opportunity to observe some rugs that had been recovered from the trash?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibit 577. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what is that?
It's a picture taken by Agent Galloway of 3 black rugs with tan stripes on them.
And are those the rugs that you did some further examination of, and just visually?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the state would move to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 577.
Let me receive.
Ask to publish that.
You may.
State's Exhibit 577 is on the screen. Are these the 3 rugs that were recovered from the trash?
Yes.
And the pattern on that, can you speak as to whether or not that appeared similar to the rug that you observed in the Hayes residence at Bella Park Trail?
It is similar, yes.
And are these, in terms of size, are these smaller rugs than that large rug we saw in the living room?
Yes, these are more bath mat size rugs, or rugs you'd put in front of your stove or your sink.
As part of your examination of the various items that were recovered from the trash, were certain of those areas sent on to the State Crime Lab for further analysis?
Yes, they were.
And did those items include 4 blue gloves?
Yes, ma'am.
May I approach? quick, I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 574. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And what is State's 574?
It's a photograph taken by Agent Galloway of 4 latex gloves. Appears to be maybe a bottle cap and a respirator.
Your Honor, at this time, the State would move to introduce 574 into evidence.
Let me receive.
And I also hand you what's previously been introduced into evidence, State's Exhibit 434. What is 434?
It's a bag that's been labeled by Agent Galloway that has blue gloves and a disposable respirator in it.
And 574, the photograph we're putting on the screen now. And is that the four blue gloves and the respirator, what appears to be a bottle cap?
It's what they, yeah, that's what that picture is.
Okay. And is that what was sent to the SBI for analysis?
I'm going to assume so. I never opened the bag and examined these personally. I just sent the item as it was.
Okay. And so you didn't look at those gloves, but sent them off to the SBI?
Yes.
What other items did you send or cause to be sent to the State Crime Lab?
To the State Crime Lab, I sent 3 touch DNA sample swabs that were taken from the victim's car, the white bath towel, a 3M disposable respirator, the rose and color bath towel, the 4 latex gloves and the respirator, a yellow dishcloth, the carpet padding, the hair and the debris from the bathtub, the sample swab from the linen closet, and the mattress cover and the water from the bathtub P-trap.
I had asked you about the fingerprints that you recovered from the various items of trash. Were you aware that Tracy Tremlett had processed the victim's car?
Yes, I was.
And were you, to your knowledge, were there any prints of value that were recovered from the victim's car?
I believe just from an item of a takeout food tray item inside the vehicle.
And to your knowledge, were they ever identified?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you know if there was a set of Laura Ackerson's fingerprints available for comparison?
I believe there were, yes.
And the Dodge Durango, were you aware that that had been processed by Agent Galloway?
There was. And I misspoke. I misunderstood you previously.
Okay. To your knowledge, was there a set of fingerprints for Laura Ackerson available for comparison?
Not Laura Ackerson, no ma'am.
And to your knowledge, were her hands ever recovered?
Not to my knowledge, no ma'am.
With regard to the Dodge Durango, were there fingerprints recovered from the Dodge Durango?
I believe so, yes.
And were they matched to Grant Hayes and Amanda Hayes?
I believe so, yes.
I mean, I'm pretty change it quick.
All right.
Agent Quick, I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibits 575, 576, and 579. And do you recognize those?
I do.
And what are they?
They're pictures taken by Agent Galloway.
And are they the various, some of the trash that was recovered?
Yes.
And these were taken in the processing area of CCBI?
In the garage, I believe, yes.
At this time, the State would move to introduce in evidence 575, 576, and 579.
Let me receive.
with regard to those items, Tax Exhibit 575, is that a picture of the rose-colored towel?
It is.
And with regard to 576,
It is a picture of a electric toothbrush and a household glove package.
and the final 579?
So 2 ready ice bags.
And those ready ice bags were some of the items that you processed for fingerprints
Yes, ma'am.
and were unable to get any that were of value for comparison.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any further involvement in terms of, in this case?
I did some additional examination at your request later on.
And what additional examination did you do?
I took a picture of a hair that was collected by Agent Tremlett, and I also examined the carpet pieces again.
And with regard to the hair that was recovered, that was in the processing of the victim's car
Yes, ma'am.
and recovered from the exterior of the car.
I believe so, yes.
And did you determine that that appeared to be an animal hair?
It was very thin and very small, and it appeared to me to be an animal hair.
And was that sent for any further analysis as a result of that?
No, ma'am.
With regard to the carpeting, you said you did a further exam of that,
I did.
and did that yield anything further that was of help to the investigation?
No, ma'am.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right. Questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Agent Quick, correct?
Yes.
It would be fair to say that as a crime scene analyst or investigator, you basically have 3 roles. You'll correct me if there are more, but it would seem that your first role is to photograph whatever it is that you're about to examine.
Yes.
And then the next role would be for you to examine and do certain tests on those items of evidence that you think you might be able to reach some conclusion about.
Yes.
And then the third role would be that if you obtain items that you don't think you can reach a conclusion about, you forward those items to the state crime lab so that they can do the analysis.
Of sorts. There are certain things we don't have the ability to do. We don't do DNA testing. We don't do blood, positive testing for blood. We do presumptive tests.
Right. So am I being fair to you?
Pretty fair.
When I say there seems to be 3 different steps of work that you do to analyze what's there or to ask someone else to do the analysis.
Yes.
You've talked about a lot of things, and I'm going to try to organize what you've talked about so that we can try to follow it in some coherent way. Let me just ask you some general questions first. Now, you indicated that after you took the photographs and knew where everything was supposed to be, that one of the first things that you did was to test the apartment using a light system to determine the presence of blood.
For the possible presence of blood, yes.
Would you describe the light system that you're talking about?
It's an alternate light source. It works on different nanometers. I think it's approximately 495 nanometers. It emits a light. We put on orange goggles. Most physiological fluids will fluoresce or glow. Blood will not. Blood will absorb light and have a tendency to look darker or black if it's present.
And did you find anything in the apartment that looked darker, indicating that it was blood?
No, I did not.
Did you use that light system throughout the entire apartment?
I used the light system in the hall bathroom, the master bedroom, the bedroom across from the hall bathroom, and the living room area.
And find no indication of blood in any of those using the light system?
No, sir.
Now, did you then go on and spray any of the rooms in the apartment with luminol?
Just the hall bathroom.
And did you get any indication using luminol that there was blood in the hall bathroom?
I had several areas that did give me a reaction that there could be blood, yes.
And I believe you indicated that some of those were on the floor,
Yes.
and that you tested those further with phenolphthalein and they were not blood.
Yes, I got a negative reaction.
Now, when you spray luminol on a substance, the reason you're doing that is you don't see anything visible that's visible to the naked eye, right?
That's correct.
And what luminol does is do you darken the room in order to spray it?
Yes, sir.
And the purpose for doing that is that if there is blood that has been cleaned up and is no longer visible to the naked eye, the luminol glows, it basically glows in the dark like a firefly.
Yes.
Would that be fair?
That's very fair
way
to say.
describe it?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Agent Quick, let me ask you, if you will, to examine what I've marked as defendant's exhibit number 46, and ask you if you can testify about, from that exhibit, about what you can expect to see with the use of luminol.
Yes.
If you will, tell the jury what you see in that photograph.
This photograph is actually one that's been printed off the internet. I've seen it myself several times doing research on luminol. It shows the area with the lights on or pre-treated. I don't know because I didn't take the picture. And then it shows an area that appears to be treated with luminol that's giving the fluorescent reaction that we're talking about.
So in the area where the blood has been cleaned up, it looks normal, doesn't it?
I can't explain to what happened at this scene, no.
In this particular photograph, you can't explain.
Yeah, I don't know.
What appears on the left. But what you see on the left is an area that appears in all respects to be normal.
Yes.
And then on the right, you see what the other half of the carpet in that photograph looks like when luminol has been sprayed on.
I'm assuming so, yes. I didn't treat this area, so I can't testify to that. That chemical is what was placed on this carpet.
I understand, but
Right.
that's what you would expect to see. Isn't it?
That's what I would expect to see is a similar reaction, yes.
Right. And it glows up like a neon light, doesn't it?
Sometimes it's very faint glow.
Thank you. If I understand you correctly, nothing in the apartment reacted positively for blood with the use of luminol, other than a spot on the door frame, bathroom door frame.
I had several areas that gave the chemiluminescent reaction. Whether they're blood or not, I don't know. The floor I got a negative response with. The frame, I don't know what it was. I didn't test it further.
You did test everything except the spot on the door frame.
In the bathroom, yes.
In the bathroom.
Yes.
And the reason you didn't test that spot was that it was so small that you couldn't do a phenolphthalein confirmatory test because of the size of it, correct?
Yes, I didn't want to waste the sample.
So what you did was package that or swab it and submit that to the SBI lab, or to the state crime lab, so that they could determine what it might be.
Yes.
And of course, luminol responds to a lot of different things, doesn't it?
Several different things, yes.
It's actually an investigative tool that allows you to determine what ought to be checked.
Yes.
And it reacts to a lot of different things, doesn't it?
Yes.
And one of the things it reacts to is bleach.
It can react to some bleaches, yes.
And there are a lot of food items it reacts to. Doesn't it?
I'm not aware of food items. I'm aware of some plant matter that it can react with and some other metal matters that it can react with.
So the fact that you have something that has tested for luminol only doesn't indicate that it's blood. It's just, it indicates that you should investigate.
Yes.
And all of the testing that you did, both with that light that you talked about and with the luminol, with the exception of that one spot on the door frame, indicated negative for blood.
Yes.
If I may, if Mr. Zollinger would be so kind as to put on the big screen the photograph of the hallway bathroom that you did. I'd like to ask you some questions about that. And this is the bathroom where that did not have any shower curtains, correct?
Yes.
Now, do you see that in this photograph that not all of the items from this room have been removed?
Yes.
For example, there is a photograph of the toilet.
Yes.
There is a jar of some kind on the back of the toilet. See that?
Yes.
Toilet paper, you see that?
Yes.
Shampoo, I see 4 bottles of shampoo. How many do you see?
4 bottles of shampoo or conditioner.
And over here on this table to the right of the toilet, there appears to be some jar or something sitting on top of that table. Do you see that?
Are you speaking of the vanity that's next to the toilet?
Yes, ma'am.
I can't see. I can see the door handle. I don't.
No, maybe it is a door handle. I can't quite see it either. But all of those items were in place in the bathroom when you used the light, correct?
Yes.
And none of those things reacted for the presence of blood, did they?
No.
And they were also present when you sprayed the room with luminol.
I believe so.
Did you spray the walls and the ceiling? Did you spray the whole room?
I sprayed if I can read you that part of my report. Luminol was applied to the entire floor, all the walls, the doors, the door frames, the linen closet floor, the bathtub, and the sink.
And you actually went so far as to pull the drains out of the bathtub to determine if there was anything that had seeped down into the what you call the T-trap.
Yes.
And that, now, did you see anything there that indicated the presence of blood?
There were a few areas on a couple of the items that I did further testing on with phenolphthalein and got negative reactions on.
And did you also, I believe you indicated that you sent the water that was in the P-trap to the state crime lab to have it further tested?
Yes.
Were there also other drains from the kitchen and the other bathroom pulled for analysis?
I pulled the P-traps from the sink in this bathroom and the kitchen sink.
And did you find anything of any significance there?
No.
Those Clorox stains that you saw on the carpet were also tested for the presence of blood
Yes.
and were negative,
Yes.
were they not? As were the mats that were underneath of the carpet.
I tested the padding that was under the foyer carpet where it was discolored, and that was negative. I didn't test the hall padding with anything.
Did you send those to the crime lab?
I did.
There was a photograph, and I was trying to keep up with the numbers, but I confess not very well, which showed the bathroom, if we could, or not the bathroom, the master bedroom in the apartment. Now, I believe you indicated that there was some stain found on the mattress pad cover,
Yes.
and that was sent to the SBI lab.
The sample that I took from the mattress pad was, yes.
Did you test it for with phenolphthalein?
I did, yes.
And that tested positive?
One of the spots tested positive, yes.
And are you aware that Amanda was pregnant shortly before you were, within a month before you were there?
I remember she had a small infant, yes.
And that's the bed that she was sleeping in, was it?
I have no idea.
Without belaboring this issue, you find only one item on the bed that, well, two items, one on the bed mattress and one on the linen closet that were sent to the SBI lab for further testing.
That I collected from the apartment, yes.
Everything else in the entire apartment tested negative for blood.
Yes.
Let me ask you also, well, there's a photograph that I want to question you from, and I just don't remember what number it was. Maybe Mr. Jones can help me here. There's a photograph of a closet with a sandal, a brown sandal, lying on the floor. Can you find that? Do you see the brown sandal lying there to the left of this photograph?
I do.
Did you find the second sandal?
I don't recall anything about searching for another sandal.
Do you recall when you searched the trash container out at, where the trash had been dumped on the floor, that there were 2 sandals similar to this found in that trash?
I believe there were. I didn't search the trash at the location. I searched and examined items that were submitted to me by Agent Galloway.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Clerk, witness John.
You might.
Let me ask you to examine what I've marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 71 and ask you if you can identify that exhibit.
Yes.
Are those the 2 brown sandals that were found in the trash pile?
I believe so.
And also found in that trash pile was that white shirt that you had identified.
Yes.
Do you recall also seeing a pair of men's underwear from that trash pile?
Yes.
Now those underwear, you indicated that the shirt was wet, mildewed, and dirty.
Yes.
You give me a moment to find the photograph of the underwear. Approach.
You may.
Agent Quick, if I may hand you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit number 69 and ask you if you can identify that exhibit.
Yes.
Does that appear to be the pair of men's underwear that were found in the officer container?
Yes.
Do you notice the pattern of dirt on that pair of underwear?
I noticed some darker discoloration areas, yes.
Do you notice in that photograph that there appears to be dirt at the top of the underwear?
There appears to be some discoloration around the waistband, yes.
There was a lot of material recovered from that trash container, wasn't there?
Yes.
Did you test all of the items in that trash container for the presence of blood with either the light that you talked about or luminol?
No.
Did you have, of the items that you did test, did you have a positive reaction to blood to anything?
Not the items I tested, no.
Now, there were some items that you did submit to the SBI lab that were found in the trash container, correct?
Yes.
What were they?
They were the white bath towel, a 3M disposable respirator, a rose color bath towel, 4 blue latex gloves, a 3M respirator, yellow dish towels, or yellow dish gloves.
I believe you also indicated that, going back to the apartment, that you did an extensive investigation of everything found in the lint, in the dryer, You basically collected everything that you thought could possibly have some value in this case. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
You talked about finding that white shirt that had the dirt on it. You recall that?
The item from the trash?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And that there was also a pair of females' women's pants that were found in the dumpster.
A moment. I just have them down as a black pair of women's pants.
Do you recall that they were size 3?
No, I do not.
You, I take it, are familiar with women's clothing sizes.
Slightly, yes.
And do you see anybody in this room that might fit into a size 3 pant?
I don't have an opinion on that.
That towel that you talked about that came out of the dumpster that had the bleach on it, the rose-colored towel,
Yes.
that towel did not have any indications of blood on it, did it?
I sent that to the SBI, or the State Crime Lab. I don't have an answer to that.
But what it appeared to be was a rose-colored towel that had been discolored with bleach. Is that what you concluded?
Yes, that's what it appeared to be.
Did you collect the maroon vacuum cleaner that was in the apartment?
I did.
Did you examine the contents of it, or did you send that to the state crime lab?
That wasn't examined.
Wasn't examined at all
No, sir.
by anyone?
No, sir.
Did you examine the yellow vacuum cleaner that was recovered from the trash dumpster?
I did.
Did you examine its contents?
I looked at its contents, yes.
Did you see anything in there of any significance to you?
No, sir.
Did you send it to the state crime lab for further evaluation?
Not at that time, no, sir.
How about later?
Not that I did, no.
I believe you indicated that you didn't actually examine the Ford Focus that belonged to Laura after it was found.
No, I did not.
The only thing you examined was that hair that was found on the door.
Yes.
Can I have a moment, John?
All right, sure.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you very much.
All right, anything on redirect?
Just one line of question.
Okay, go ahead.
Agent Quick, you have been asked some questions about luminol. And do you know what it is in blood that reacts with the luminol?
It's the iron and the hemoglobin.
And if a particular surface has had blood on it at some point, would you expect that forever thereafter it would test positive with luminol?
Not forever, no.
Okay. What are some things that would cause a surface to no longer test positive for blood with luminol after it's been cleaned up?
Time, wear, if it's been cleaned with bleach or other chemicals, we might not get a reaction to it. If there were an item between the surface I processed with luminol and the actual blood, if there was something between the two, a barrier of sorts, I wouldn't get a reaction.
And you've indicated that bleach is something that some bleaches react with luminol, is that right?
Yes.
During the course of going through this, do you have a test for bleach specifically to identify something as bleach?
No.
Is bleach something that you use in your work and cleaning your instruments?
Yes.
And why do you use bleach in particular?
Because it's desanitizing, it cleans blood or other physiological fluids off of the equipment that we use.
And so using bleach on a particular surface would have the ability to completely erase any of the iron and the hemoglobin or anything else that would react to these various chemicals?
It's possible.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Just a couple other things, ma'am. In that hall bathroom, the molding was removed from around the floor, wasn't it?
Yes.
If there had been blood seeping beneath that molding, it was not accessible to anyone who was attempting to clean the floor with bleach, was it?
I would think not, no.
In fact, I believe it was Agent Galloway who removed that molding.
He removed some, yes.
And when you tested it for the presence of blood, it tested negative, didn't it?
With my reactions with luminol, I've got negative reactions, yes.
And did you test, well, there was nothing there to test to follow up with phenolphthalein, was there?
No, sir, there was not.
You never got a reaction to the luminol or the light test, did you?
No, sir.
Ms. Holt asked you if time, the passage of time, is one of the things that affects whether or not an area that has been cleaned up would react positively to either the light test or luminol. Did you recall that question?
Yes.
Are you aware that luminol can be used to detect an area where blood used to be for several years after the blood has been cleaned up?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Agent Quick, when you indicated in response to my question earlier that a barrier, if there was a barrier between the surface and blood, that it would not test positive with luminol or phenolphthalein, do you recall that?
Yes.
And would such a barrier be something like a plastic tarp?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Mhm.
If someone were using a reciprocal skill saw to dismember a body in a room anywhere, would you expect to find blood splatter in that room?
I personally have never used a saw of sorts. I don't know what it would do. I don't use any saws. I have no idea if it would cause the back spatter or any other spatter in the room. I have no experience with that.
But you had no reaction on the walls, on the ceiling, anywhere, did you?
I had no reaction on the walls. We didn't spray the ceiling.
Thank you, ma'am.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Alice. You can stand down. Okay, our next witness.
State calls Lindsay Den.
All right, come and be sworn, please. Is that person here?
She's in the hallway.
Call your witness, please.
State calls Lindsay then.
Come around, Miss Swan, please. There's the Bible right up there. If you'd put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand, remain standing and be sworn. You're going to be affirmed? You're going to be affirmed?
I can swear.
Okay, there's a Bible right there. If you put your left hand on the Bible, please, and raise your right hand, please. Thank you.
You solemnly swear testimony you give this point, you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
May I approach to collect these exhibits?
Sure. All right, thank you. Move it close to the mic, and I'll let you proceed.
Stan, could you state your name for the jury?
My name is Lindsay Dinh, last name spelled D-Y-N.
And what's your occupation?
I am a forensic document examiner for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and I work in the laboratory division, which is located in Quantico, Virginia.
What's your educational background?
I received a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from Central Missouri State University and a Master's in Forensic Sciences from the George Washington University.
How long have you worked at the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
Approximately 5.5 years.
And to be clear, you're not an agent with the FBI.
That's correct. I'm not an agent.
And what's the nature of your work with the FBI?
I examine and compare questioned handwriting and hand printing, typewriting, printing processes, and other documentary evidence with known material in order to determine its authenticity or origin.
Can you explain the difference between authenticity and origin?
When I'm speaking of authenticity, I generally am talking about the genuineness of dating questions. So if something was purported to be produced at a certain time frame, were the materials actually around before or by that time period? When I refer to the origin, I usually am talking about the authorship.
And the authorship is obviously who wrote the document.
Yes, that's correct.
And what training have you received for the examination of question documents?
I completed a comprehensive 2-year training program, which included formalized classroom instruction as well as practical hands-on exercises covering the multiple subdisciplines of question document examination. That was a full-time training program in which I also completed hundreds of cases and practical problems under the direct supervision of other qualified document examiners. And then before becoming qualified to independently conduct my own examinations, I also successfully completed a series of written tests, moot courts, and oral boards.
And you work in the FBI lab, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that lab accredited?
Yes, it is.
And how is it accredited?
The FBI laboratory is accredited for the examination of question documents by ASCLD Lab underneath their international program, and that stands for the American Society of Crime Laboratory Directors Laboratory Accreditation Board.
And do you keep up with continuing education to stay at the front of your field?
Yes, sir.
And have you previously testified as an expert before in federal court and state court?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I would tender the witness as an expert in the field of question documents.
The court accepts the tender. Go ahead.
Your Honor, can I approach a witness?
You may.
Can I hand you what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit 77? If you can look in there, do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
And is that the question document that you began work on in your investigation of this case?
Yes, sir.
And is that the handwritten note that is States Exhibit 77?
Yes.
Now, when you first begin a case, what is a question document?
A question document is simply a piece of evidence which is submitted to me where the authorship is unknown.
And how do you begin to determine the authorship or compare it to other handwriting samples?
I use a methodology which is known as ACE-V methodology, which stands for Analysis, Comparison, Evaluation, and Verification.
Okay, I guess starting with the first letter of that acronym, what is the analysis?
Analysis is the initial phase in a document examination, and this is where I first determine using microscopically and proper lighting to see if the handwriting is original writing, so in other words, not a copy, and also if it's freely and naturally prepared. During this initial analysis phase, I also determine the suitability between the questioned and the known writing. So are they comparable in style? Are they both hand-printed or handwritten, or is one hand-printed and one cursive? Also the comparability in wording, and if there's not sufficient words, are there enough letter combinations to conduct a full comparison?
What is the basis for that handwriting identification?
Handwriting is a very dynamic and complex skill which involves the interaction of the mind, muscles, and nervous system. It's a skill which is acquired over time, and with repeated practice and use, we begin developing our own individual habits and writing characteristics. It's the combination of these individual writing characteristics which forms the foundation for the first principle of handwriting identification, which is that given a sufficient quantity and quality of writing, no two people will write exactly alike. It's also because of this interaction between our mind, muscles, and nervous system in conjunction with environmental factors that it has been found that no person will write the exact same way twice. We obviously are not robots, so we cannot reproduce an action with the same methodical precision and accuracy every time. So there is a degree of variation to everyone's writing, which is a natural practice in handwriting. If you think about the ways that you may form a capital letter E, you may form them two different ways. One may be with 4 individual strokes, and another way that you also write it is with a Greek letter E, which is essentially a backwards letter 3. While there is a degree of variation within all of our handwriting, there are also certain individual characteristics which are so ingrained in developed writers that they are transferred to their repeated writings. So if you think about when you go to the mailbox and you receive a postcard or a letter and you look at the handwriting, you may immediately notice that it's your mother's. That's not necessarily because you looked at the return address yet, but because you recognize her very elegant or right slanted handwriting that you've come to notice over the years. So when you do that, you're essentially doing a mini handwriting comparison. It's the combination of these two principles that no two people write exactly alike given a sufficient quantity and quality of writing, and also that we have a degree of variation, that they are not exact replicas, that allows an examiner to make a determination as to authorship.
And prior to that question, you mentioned the ACE-V analysis method. Is that correct? For the way that you do the handwriting comparison?
Correct.
And so you mentioned that the A is the analysis. And what is the next letter in that acronym, the C stand for?
C stands for comparison, and this is the next stage after analysis, in which I look for significant handwriting characteristics in both the questioned and the known writing. Once I've located one in the questioned writing, I will then note its presence or absence in the known writing. And when I'm talking about handwriting characteristics, I'm going beyond just the mere pictorial characteristics that you may see to more the subtle characteristics such as height relationships, baseline alignment, which is that real or imaginary line of writing upon which the writing rests, pen pressure, pen lifts, and things of that nature.
When we say pen pressure, how do you examine pen pressure in a writing?
Pen pressure is examined microscopically, and it's defined in relative terms such as heavy or light.
Your Honor, can I approach a witness?
You may.
And I hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as States Exhibit A502. Is this the report of your examination that you conducted in this case?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, this time I move into evidence State's Exhibit 502.
That'll be received.
And Your Honor, may I publish a picture of State's Exhibit 77 at this time?
You may.
Now, in this case, Ms. Dinn, is this the question writing that you have before you, State's Exhibit 77?
Yes.
And at initial glance, does that handwriting on the top appear to be different than the handwriting on the bottom?
Correct.
With respect to the analysis and comparison method of that, well, after you do that, the A and the C, which is a comparison, what did the E and the B stand for?
The E is evaluation, which is essentially where I weigh all of the characteristics that I've observed throughout my examination, any similarities, any differences, any unexplained characteristics, along with any limitations if there are any present. After that, the V part is verification, and this stage is where I give the original evidence along with my notes and my case report to another qualified document examiner so that they may determine whether or not my notes support my conclusions and also if my conclusion is within the realms of the discipline.
And Your Honor, may I approach witness again?
You may.
And I hand you what's been marked for identification purposes, the State's Exhibit 503. Is this a PowerPoint that helps explain how you do your examination of a question document?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time I move to enter State's Exhibit 503.
Let 503 be received.
So with this question document that's before the jury, the State's Exhibit 77, what's the first thing that you do as part of your examination?
The first part is that A, the analysis, and as part of that analysis stage, I also determined the internal consistency of the writing. So in this case, it appears that there may be two different writers between the first and the second paragraph.
And after you've determined inside the document that there appears to be two different types of handwriting, what do you do after you've discerned that?
After I've done my analysis independently on both the question and the known specimen, I then begin my comparison with one known writer at a time.
Your Honor, coverage witness.
You may.
So then I hand you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 503. Does this contain 10 writing samples by this defendant, Amanda Hayes?
Yes.
And to be clear, on this writing, did you put your initials at the bottom corner as you use that to compare to this question document?
Yes, that's correct.
And these writing samples, are they the same words as what's included in State's Exhibit 77?
Yes, they are.
And actually, State's Exhibit 504, inside this, are there 10 writing samples by Grant Hayes?
Yes.
And same thing, this is in Grant Hayes' handwriting, the content of State's Exhibit 77?
That's correct.
Your Honor, at this time I moved into evidence State's Exhibit 503 and 504.
Let him be received.
Just for purpose of the record, 503 is Amanda Hayes' sample letters and 504 is Grant Hayes' sample letters.
Yes.
Okay. So after you have these known handwriting samples, how do you begin the comparison process between State's Exhibit 77 and the known samples?
I start comparing individual characteristics one at a time, first looking at the question writing and then looking over to the known writing in order to determine whether they are present or not.
And as you did this comparison, did you compare not only Grant Hayes and Amanda Hayes' writing, but also Laura Ackerson's handwriting?
That's correct.
Your Honor, coverage witness.
You may.
So then I hand to what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 506. What is that material?
The outside packaging says K1 Laura Ackerson writing samples.
My first clerk.
You may.
Thank you.
And are these other writings of Laura Ackerson that you use to compare to State's Exhibit 77?
Yes, sir.
And additionally, State's Exhibit 507, judging by how it's been labeled, do you know what this object is?
It's labeled as K2 and K3, which I believe was Grant and Amanda Hayes' handwriting.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter State's Exhibit 506 and 507.
No moves.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 503.
All right.
And I'd also ask to publish State's Exhibit 502.
All right.
Thank you. Apologize. Starting with State's Exhibit 503. Ms. Ting, could you explain to the jury what we're looking at in this example from your report?
This PowerPoint presentation is noting the comparison between the text on the question document on the left-hand side. So again, the document where the authorship is in question or unknown. And on the right-hand side is the known writing of the K2 writer, Grant Hayes. You will also notice that it's labeled dictated and undictated known writing. So essentially we have two different types of known writing. Dictated is the exemplars where you sit down and write it specifically for the purposes of comparison so that you have similar comparability. So as you can see, it's in the exact verbiage as the question note. And then undictated known writing is also known as normal course of business writing. So essentially collected writings from your day-to-day activities if you're writing a shopping list or a letter perhaps.
And so the undictated, how do you begin the comparison between the question sample and the known samples?
Again, first you're going to want to look for internal consistency. So once that's already been accomplished with the question, you then look at the known, both the dictated and the undictated, to see if they're similar to ensure that you have the same writer attributed as the K2 writer. Then you begin your comparison phase, so the C and the ACE-V process. And highlighted on the chart there is a yellow box looking at the first line of the question writing, also with some horizontal lines. These are denoting a baseline relationship, which if you remember, it's that real, or in this case, the imaginary line of writing. So you can see that the words Laura and Ackerson are along the baseline, where the initial J is significantly below the baseline. This same baseline relationship was also seen throughout the known writing, as you can see in the dictated portion on the first line.
So, for instance, in this automatically mean that it's written by different people?
No, that would be an example of a variation.
And then here, with the green boxes on the top part of State's Exhibit 77 and the dictated writing, what did you notice?
Here I would like to display for you the letter K in Ackerson, specifically how it's formed. It has a connecting stroke from the preceding letter C and then goes up towards the top of the page, back down towards the baseline, and then with an underhanded curve which forms a loop where the legs of the K would be. And this same letter formation was also observed in the dictated known, as you can also see on the first line highlighted by the green box.
And that's another similarity that she knows between the question document and the known dictated writing.
That's correct.
Here, in a blue box, what do we see?
These next series of blue boxes are an example of what is the variation, so essentially the number of ways a person will form a particular character. In this instance, I want you to look at the letter R and agree on the second line. There is a initial stroke from the left-hand side that's kind of flourished. Then it projects down towards the baseline, curving back up at an arc to the right. This same characteristic was also observed throughout the known writing, as you can see in the dictated portion in the word agree, and then a little further down also in the word there. So this next example is a variation on the letter R. This time in the word surrendering, the second letter R. It's somewhat similar to the first letter, except for it's much straighter, and there's actually a blind or a hidden retracing from back down towards the baseline and then up projecting with somewhat of a straight arc to the right. This same characteristic was also observed throughout the known writing, as you can see in the word parental.
And again, is this looking at the letter R and pursue in Lenore County and in the undictated writing under everything?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And did you continue to do these comparisons with these letters between the top half of States Exhibit 77 and the dictated and undictated writing of Grant Hayes?
That's correct.
Okay. And after, I guess, as we proceed through this, did you also examine the T here and B and this dictated writing?
Specifically the T height relationships and also the connecting stroke into the letter H.
After you made these comparisons here we see another one. Did you eventually come to a conclusion?
Yes.
And what was that conclusion?
It was my opinion that the first paragraph of the question writing was prepared by the K2 writer Grant Hayes.
Is this an example of all the different parts of this writing that you looked at in making that conclusion?
Not all, but some. I was just doing it for demonstrative purposes. When I form my conclusion, it's a combination of all of the characteristics which I observed, and this is just a sampling.
Now, at some point, did you then begin to examine the bottom half of States Exhibit 77?
Yes.
Okay, and how did you begin doing that?
Again, with the same methodology, going one character at a time, looking for the characteristics and noting their absence or presence within the known writing.
Okay. And did you use those notebooks that are before you that were known writings of Laura Ackerson?
Yes.
Okay. And did you also utilize Laura's journal or diary that's previously been omitted in this trial?
Yes, sir.
And again, did you go through the same method of comparison?
Yes.
And as you went through that same method of comparison, I guess for Laura's handwriting, you obviously didn't have the dictated writing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And does that make it obviously more difficult for you to be able to discern?
It can if comparable letter formations and combinations weren't present.
And here I show you what is States Exhibit 502. Is this a copy of your report?
Yes, sir.
And does this include your examination and the results of your examinations?
Yes.
And as to that bottom part of States Exhibit 77, which I show you again, did you come to a conclusion?
For the second paragraph, yes.
Okay. And what was your conclusion for that second paragraph?
It was my conclusion that Laura Ackerson prepared the second paragraph.
additionally, going back to your report, do you note in here that the signature of Laura Ackerson, were you able to make any designations about or conclusions about that signature?
No, I was not able to form a conclusion on the signature or the date.
Okay, and why was that?
The signature was limited in style to the K1 and K2 writers, Laura Ackerson and Grant Hayes, and then the date was too limited in quantity.
At some point, did you begin an investigation of indentation on State's Exhibit 77?
Yes, indented writing analysis was performed.
And could you explain to the jury what indented writing analysis involves?
Indented writing is essentially the impressions made into a surface below the sheet that's actually written upon. So if you think about when you write in a notebook, say you're writing a grocery list on the first page of a notebook. You tear out that first page and you take it to the grocery store with you. Now, if you were to look at the pages underlying, you would not see any ink on it, obviously, because you haven't written on it. But the pressure that you used on the initial form of the shopping list was impressed into the pages beneath it. Now, using a variety of methods, we may be able to develop or enhance these indentations.
Your Honor, can I approach the witness?
You may.
Then I hand you, it's been marked for identification purposes of State's Exhibit 508. And what is this group of documents?
It is the secondary evidence or the ESDA lists that were generated from the indented writing analysis.
And could you explain what ESDA means?
ESDA is an instrument which stands for electrostatic detection apparatus, and it basically works on the principle that opposites attract. When you start off, you first humidify the document in a humidity chamber, and then placing the document on the porous platen or the bed of this ESDA instrument, there are essentially tiny little holes in it, and it sucks it down via a vacuum. A very small, thin sheet of film is then placed on top to protect the document, and it's also sucked down via the vacuum. A negative charge is then applied over the entire surface of the film and the document, and then a charge redistribution occurs to where the more positive charges reside in the indentations. Cascade developer, which is essentially very tiny glass beads, and toner, so very fine black dust, is then cascaded over the surface, and this is negatively charged and is attracted to the positively charged indentations. Essentially then what we're left with is a visualization of these indentations, which can be preserved using another plastic medium.
And within State's Exhibit 508, is that ESDA lift preserved?
Yes, it is.
And is this the result of that, using that ESDA machine?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And that part that resulted from the ESDA machine, has that been marked as State's Exhibit 508A?
Yes, it has.
Your Honor, this time I move to enter State's Exhibit 508, including 508A.
That'll be received.
Your Honor, I'd ask to publish State's Exhibit 508A at this time.
You may.
And to break it down a little bit further, so you have the question piece of paper, and before you put it in the machine, is it you humidify it?
Yes, you put it in a humidity chamber.
Okay. And then you put it inside the machine on some sort of plate that allows this dust to be arranged where the indentation's located?
You actually place it on top of the bed of the document, of the ESDA, excuse me, and then the charge redistribution occurs after you negatively charge it.
And that results in being able to see indentations that are on the paper that the naked eye can't see?
After the toner's been applied, yes.
Your Honor, if I could publish State's Exhibit 508A.
All right.
Obviously, it's pretty difficult to see. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is this that we see in State's Exhibit 508A the same as State's Exhibit 77?
I'm sorry, can you rephrase the question?
Yeah, is this the same piece of paper in State's Exhibit 508A that we see in State's Exhibit 77?
Yes.
And
That's actually a photocopy of the ESDA lift, but yes.
Sure. So this is a really poor copy of what's in front of you in State's Exhibit 508A.
Yes.
And could you hold that exhibit up so the jury can see it? On State's Exhibit 77, was there some indented writing found?
Yes, there was.
And is it on this exhibit, State's Exhibit 508A?
Yes.
And could you point out for the jury, I think there's a laser pointer up there, roughly where that indented writing was found?
It's in the top left-hand corner, somewhat at a slant.
And that's, that bracketed area is around where it was found?
Yes.
Okay. Now, going back to State's Exhibit 77, could you indicate, again, using the ESDA that's before you, roughly the area where that indentation was found?
About there.
And you can't see that with your naked eye, correct?
On the question document, no.
And were you able to analyze that and determine exactly what the indented writing, what letters you can make out in that indented writing?
Portions of it.
Going back to your report, which is State's Exhibit 502. Here, did you note the indented writing that you saw on the top left corner of that page?
Yes.
And could you tell the jury what it is that you were able to make out on the top of State's Exhibit 77?
As you can see on the screen, it says I, capital L, then underscores, capital A. The underscores essentially represent that there were characters there, but I couldn't make out exactly what they were. So instead of trying to make a guess, I left it blank. And then it continues on AC underscore ERS, which is they're underlined, meaning that was how I interpreted it as an ERS. But just to be cautious, I left it as an underscore.
So wait, to break that down further. So where there's the underscore on the page, that's where you couldn't read what was written. There was some indentation, but you couldn't make out.
When there's an underscore and no words, yes.
And the ERS, where that's also underlined, that is a place where you're not positive about the letters that are there?
It was my best approximation, and it's how it looked to me.
Okay. And if you continue after the ERS, was there some more writing that I guess you couldn't identify?
That's correct.
And then if you could continue reading the rest of that first line that was indented.
Underscore FOR, then there was a space, sum of, and then the next line there was what appeared to be a $sign, and then again some more writing, but I couldn't decipher it. Following down to the next line then, there was some more indented writing, but it wasn't legible. Then there was a capital letter N, lowercase o, T, which is underscored, a few more letters, which I wasn't sure of, the letter F, Y, then an underscore NG, capital C, lowercase o, and then underscored U. Again, another letter that I wasn't sure about, and then the letters SEL, along with some more indented writing, which was not legible.
If I show you State's Exhibit 77 again, and I'm going to attempt to put both of these on the screen at the same time. And I'm not sure I'm able to do that. Here on the left side of the screen is that State's Exhibit 77. On the right side of the screen is part of your report, State's Exhibit 502.
That's correct.
And could you compare the first line of State's Exhibit 77? Does it appear to have some similarities with the first line of State's Exhibit 502 where you were able to read this indented writing?
Are you speaking textually?
Yes.
Yes.
I guess I should ask you, what do you mean by text?
Well, before we were talking about handwriting examinations, and so I just wanted to clarify.
Okay. The actual text of the indented writing appears to be similar to the handwritten State's Exhibit 77. That's the first line.
That's correct.
And then all that you can make out on this indented writing on the second line was a $sign and some other letters that you couldn't discern.
Correct.
Okay. And then on the third line, you're able to see in the indented writing some letters that appear similar to notifying counselor or something close to that.
Correct.
And in State's Exhibit 77, that notifying counsel, if that's what it says, isn't on the third line. It's actually in the different handwriting that you've identified as Laura Ackerson's.
That's correct.
And these three lines of indented writing were found on the top left corner of this page.
Yes.
And essentially the page was indented right there with prior writing that had been over it.
Correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
No question.
Let me ask you, just for clarification, you were not able to determine whether or not the prior writing occurred prior to the writing that it was on top of?
No, Your Honor, I can only say that it was printed on top of it.
Okay, so
So a previous page, perhaps.
this could have been a blank page, for instance,
Correct.
when the prior writing was made on it, or it could have actually been written and then the writing was.
I cannot determine the sequence, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, thank you.
I can ask one question off of that.
Okay, sure.
The indented writing, you weren't able to perform any sort of handwriting analysis on that based on the condition of that as delivered?
No, that was not what was requested.
Okay, thank you.
If I may have one question on cost, Agent, it's not Agent, it's Ms. Den. You were not able to determine if Laura Ackerson's signature was written by Laura Ackerson?
That's correct. I could not determine whether any of the known writers prepared that portion.
And I noticed when your report was up there that you indicated that one of the, if I understood your report correctly, that you indicated that you did not have enough signature exemplars, if you will, or undictated signatures of Laura Ackerson to feel confident to make that call as to whether she wrote that.
That's correct.
And you indicated that some sources of undictated signatures, examples for Ms. Atkerson would have come from canceled checks or applications or things where she normally signed her signature over and over on multiple documents.
Yes, ma'am.
And you never received any of those for comparison.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Just briefly, if I could publish Stacy's Exhibit 77 again. Could you make any conclusions about the consistency between the signature of Laura Ackerson and the writing at the bottom of the page?
No, sir. That would be intercomparison of styles, and we're not able to do that as handwriting examiners. You can only compare hand printing to hand printing or signatures to signatures.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. This witness is excused and she's released. Thank you.
May I return to Washington, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you.
Anywhere you want to go. You can have a seat right here and watch this case if you want to. All right.
Your Honor, can I approach?
Sure.
And the state calls Courtney last.
All right. Thank you. I'm not sure why anyone would want to return to Washington, but all right.
You solemnly swear the testimony you give this morning will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you. I do. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, you know, it's 10 minutes after 4. This is not a 5-minute witness, I assume. Okay. Well, we know who's going to be next, so just hold that moment, folks, and we'll. Well, we take about 10 minutes. I mean, everybody, the court reporter certainly needs a break. She's taking on what everybody says, so let's take about 10 minutes and come on back in, and we'll finish for the day. But keep an open mind, follow my previous instructions. Take about a 10-minute break and reassemble back in the jury room. Thank you.